The first thing I noticed was the floor. It wasn't just clean, it was glowing. The marble inside Trump Tower didn't look real to me. It looked like something from a movie set, all sleek and polished, reflecting the bright lights and the sharp heels and the leather shoes of people who walked like they owned the air. Every step I took sounded louder than it should have, my old sneakers squeaking against that perfect, shiny surface like they were apologizing for even being there. I kept my eyes low, following the line of people in front of me, pretending to be invisible. The bank branch inside the building was all glass and chrome, the kind of place where the pens on the counter were probably worth more than my entire outfit. Men in tailored suits stood in lines scrolling through their phones. Women in fitted dresses checked emails on their laptops. And some people didn't stand in line at all. They just walked straight to a private door because they were expected. Then there was me, 16, wearing a faded navy hoodie with a stain on the sleeve I'd tried to scrub out last night, jeans that were starting to fray at the edges, and sneakers that had once been white but were now some tired grey colour. I could feel the security guard's eyes on me from the side, not in a hostile way, but in that "are you lost?" way. Maybe I was. The air smelled like expensive cologne, paper, and something cold. Like money, real money. The kind that doesn't crumple in your pocket because it never really passes through hands. It just moves from screen to screen. I held my small, worn-out wallet a little tighter in my hand. Inside it, there was only my student ID, my state ID, and a crumpled $5 bill. Not even the card I was here for. That card had a different place, tucked carefully into my phone case, pressed against the back like it needed to be near me all the time. "Next in line, please," one of the tellers called out. Her voice was calm, professional. I still had 2 people ahead of me. My heart sped up like I was about to take a test I hadn't studied enough for. This was stupid, I told myself. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't begging. I was just checking a number, just a number on a screen. But that number, if it was real, could change everything. I swallowed, feeling my throat dry up. My tongue felt like sandpaper. I checked my phone for what had to be the 100th time that morning. The notification was still there on the brokerage app, glowing like it was mocking me. Plus 812.6%. I had stared at those digits so long my eyes hurt. The stock chart looked like a rocket, a straight line up, and the balance? The balance didn't fit in my brain. It didn't match my life. It didn't match the apartment in Queens where the ceiling sometimes leaked when it rained too hard. It didn't match the nights my mom sat at the table with her head buried in her hands, bills spread out like enemy soldiers. That's why I was here, surrounded by marble and glass and people who smelled like success. I needed to know if it was real. I took a slow breath and looked around again, forcing myself to focus on anything except the knot in my chest. The walls were lined with digital screens showing charts, exchange rates, and smiling faces from advertisements saying things like, "Your wealth, our priority." A man with salt and pepper hair laughed too loudly on a phone call as he said, "No, just move the extra 500 to the other account. I don't care which one." 500. Extra. The word extra hit me like a joke. There was nothing extra in my life. Every dollar I had ever touched had a job, a purpose, a sacrifice attached to it. When I was 10, extra meant maybe ordering pizza on a Friday. Now it meant whether or not my mom could pay the light bill on time. Someone's cologne drifted past me again, sharp and commanding. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when the energy in the room changed. You know when a teacher walks into a classroom and everyone suddenly shuts up? It was like that, but heavier. Conversations started to slow. A few heads turned toward the entrance. The security guard shifted his stance, suddenly alert, but also respectful. I followed their eyes against my better judgment, and there he was. Donald Trump walked in, flanked by two suited men and another guy holding a thin leather portfolio. I'd seen him 1,000,000 times on TV, in memes, on the news, in old clips on YouTube. But in person, he didn't look like a character. He just looked solid, real. Like someone who had lived 1,000 lives in front of cameras and didn't care that you were staring. He wore a dark overcoat open over a suit, his tie that unmistakable red. His hair looked exactly like the internet said it did, but somehow the room adjusted to him, like everything softened around where he walked. People didn't rush up to him, but they straightened their backs. A few whispered. One guy near me muttered, "Of course he's here," under his breath, and forced a laugh. I froze. My first instinct was to look away, but I couldn't. I'd watched videos about him, read articles, seen people either love him or hate him, but none of that mattered for the moment. Right now, he wasn't politics. He wasn't headlines. He was the closest thing to the world I'd been studying late at night on my cracked phone screen. The world of deals, leverage, risk, and power. And I was standing in the same bank as him, wearing a hoodie that smelled faintly like cleaning chemicals. He didn't look at me. Why would he? He walked toward a desk near the far side, where a bank manager was already waiting, shaking his hand like this was the most important meeting of his month. The two suited men with him scanned the room automatically, eyes trained and practiced. I looked down quickly, heat rushing to my face. I shouldn't be here. The thought came hard and fast. This building wasn't for people like me. These conversations weren't meant for kids from Queens whose mums cleaned offices owned by people who walked on marble floors. But I was here anyway. I could hear my mum's voice in my head, thick with her accent and exhaustion. "Be careful, Eli. Don't go putting yourself where people don't respect you. Some places are not for us." She didn't say it to limit me. She said it because she'd been burned enough times to know better. But there was another voice, quieter and stubborn, one I'd been listening to more often lately. It whispered, "If you never step where you think you don't belong, how will your life ever change?" "Next in line," the teller said again. Only one person left in front of me now. A woman in a grey coat stepped forward, heels clicking authoritatively. She placed a designer purse on the counter in that casual way people do when they've never worried about it being stolen. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, the strap of my backpack digging into my shoulder. Inside the bag were textbooks, a half-eaten granola bar, and a ragged notebook filled with numbers, goals, scribbles about compound interest and dollar-cost averaging. Words that didn't belong to my neighborhood but had somehow made their way into my life anyway. I stared at the back of the woman's head, at the neat bun pinned perfectly in place. I wondered what her balance looked like. Did she ever stand in line with her heart pounding because of a number on a screen? Did she ever walk into a bank wondering if reality was finally going to line up with everything she'd been dreaming in secret? Probably not. I sucked in another breath through my nose. The air felt too cold in my lungs. "Relax," I whispered under my breath. "You're just checking, that's all." But that wasn't all. Because if the balance was what my phone said it was, it meant the last 2 years of my life hadn't been pointless. It meant the nights I stayed up watching videos about cash flow instead of TikToks weren't a waste. It meant working late, taking double shifts, saying no to hanging out. All of that had turned into something more than just tired bones and a handful of crumpled cash. It meant I wasn't crazy for believing I could change my story. "Hey, kid," a voice suddenly said to my left. I flinched and turned. It was the security guard, a tall guy with a thick beard speckled with grey. His expression wasn't harsh, just curious. He tilted his head toward me. "You good?" he asked quietly. I swallowed. "Yeah, I'm good. Just waiting." He eyed my hoodie, my backpack, the way I kept shifting from one foot to the other. Then his gaze softened, like he recognized something in me that wasn't trouble, just nerves. "First time here?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." He smirked. "It's just a bank, man. Same money, different building." I let out a tiny, shaky laugh. "Doesn't feel like it." He shrugged. "That part's in your head. Take a breath. Handle your business." Handle your business. The words settled in my chest like a small anchor. I nodded. "Thanks." He gave a short nod back and turned his attention to the entrance again. I looked over one more time at Trump. He was talking to the manager now, gesturing with his hand, his voice low but firm, like someone explaining a move 3 steps ahead that nobody else could see yet. I wondered if he'd ever stood somewhere feeling like he didn't belong. Somehow, I doubted it. The woman in front of me finished her transaction and stepped away from the counter, adjusting her purse strap as if money had just moved in silence between invisible lines, and that was the most normal thing in the world. My legs felt numb as I stepped forward. The teller was a woman in her 30s, with neatly tied back brown hair and glasses that made her eyes look bigger behind the lenses. Her name tag said AMY. She offered me a polite, professional smile, the kind you give someone when you don't expect to see them again. "Good morning," she said. "How can I help you today?" The question hit me harder than it should have. How can I help you today? No one ever asked that with access to this kind of power. Not to someone like me. They said things like, "We're closing soon," or "You need to pay this," or "We don't have any more hours to give you this week." I glanced down at my wallet, at my hands, at the little white edge of my state ID peeking out. I could feel Trump's presence across the room, like a shadow at the edge of my vision. Part of me thought about lying, saying I wanted to deposit something or open some regular account, something normal and boring. But that wasn't why I came. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my ears. My palms were slick with sweat. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I cleared my throat, forcing my eyes to meet hers. "I just want to check my balance." It was such a small sentence, 7 words. But the second they left my mouth, I felt exposed, like I'd just announced to the whole room, "Hey, I'm the kid who probably has $12 in his account. Please judge me accordingly." Behind me, someone let out a tiny chuckle. Not cruel, but amused, like they'd heard that line 1,000 times from people who didn't matter. Then I heard another laugh, deeper, more distinct. Donald Trump had just finished saying something to the manager and must have caught my words as I spoke. He turned slightly, just enough for his voice to carry. "Join the club, kid," he said with a short laugh. "We all want to check our balance." A couple of people in the line laughed along, like it was a casual joke. My face burned. My stomach dropped through the floor. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the marble, to rewind the last 30 seconds and say nothing at all. Amy's polite smile flickered, the tiniest hint of sympathy crossing her eyes before she turned back to her computer. "Of course," she said gently. "I can help you with that. May I see your ID?" My fingers fumbled as I pulled my state ID from the wallet and slid it across the counter. My hand was shaking slightly, and I hoped she wouldn't notice. I could still feel Trump's presence in the room, the echo of his laugh bouncing around inside my head. It wasn't even a mean laugh, just casual, automatic, like I'd confirmed some expectation about what kids like me come to banks for. I took a breath. "Handle your business." I watched as Amy typed my name into the system, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. The screen in front of her glowed, lines of information appearing that I couldn't see from where I was standing. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, the hum of the air conditioning and the distant murmur of voices blending into a low buzz. My heart kept beating too fast. Maybe the number on my phone was a glitch. Maybe the trade hadn't gone through. Maybe there was some limit, some rule, some reason I was about to look stupid for even thinking it could be real. I swallowed hard. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, there was something else, something steady and stubborn. The same thing that made me say no to fast food when my friends invited me, that made me watch financial videos at 2 in the morning with the volume low so my mum could sleep. A quiet thought rose up, cutting through the noise. Whatever shows up on that screen, you earned it. Amy's fingers slowed. Her eyebrows dipped for a split second, like something on the monitor had surprised her. She leaned in closer to the screen. Her smile faded. Her eyes didn't widen. Her mouth didn't drop. It wasn't a dramatic reaction, not yet, but something subtle shifted in her expression, like she'd just read something that didn't fit the profile of a kid in a hoodie with shaky hands. She tapped a few more keys, slower now. Then she glanced at me, back at the screen, and then at me again. That second look made my chest tighten. "Just a moment," she murmured. Those 3 words can mean anything. In my life, they usually meant something bad. Just a moment meant they couldn't find an account. Just a moment meant a payment wasn't processed. Just a moment meant something was wrong and someone else was about to get involved. She stood up. "I'm going to get my manager. Please wait right here." My stomach plummeted. Sweat seeped into my palms again. Behind me, someone in line groaned impatiently. I could feel eyes scraping across my back, waiting for the inevitable. This kid doesn't have an account. This kid is wasting everyone's time. This kid doesn't belong here. Amy walked briskly to a glass office where a man in a navy blazer was typing something on his computer. She leaned down and whispered to him while pointing subtly in my direction, trying not to attract attention. It didn't work. A man in line behind me muttered, "Great, this kid's slowing the whole line." The woman next to him whispered something about fraud alerts and kids doing stupid things online. Heat crawled up my neck, but I kept my eyes straight ahead. If I turned around now, I might lose whatever courage I walked in with. The manager stood up. He was tall, with a clean-shaven face, and the kind of polished politeness that rich people trusted immediately. But when he looked at me, his expression wasn't irritated. It wasn't condescending. It was curious. He approached the counter calmly. "Good morning," he said, extending a hand. "I'm David. I'm the branch manager here. I just want to verify a few things about your account." Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. My brain didn't buy that for a second. He typed something into the computer, then asked for my full name, date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my social security number. My voice trembled slightly when I answered, but he didn't comment on it. He clicked again, and then he stopped. He stared at the screen for a long moment, brows knitting together, not in confusion, but in something closer to disbelief. He tilted his head, reviewing the numbers, scrolling a bit, checking the activity log. Finally, he inhaled sharply, straightened his back, and turned to Amy. "Is this accurate?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Yes, I double-checked." My pulse hammered so hard it hurt. David looked at me fully now, not with curiosity, but with a kind of respectful seriousness I had never seen directed at me in a bank before. Like suddenly, I wasn't just a kid in a hoodie. Suddenly, I was someone. He cleared his throat. "Eli," he said gently, "I want you to look at this screen so we can confirm together." My knees felt weak. I stepped closer to the counter, and there it was. My balance, my real balance, a number so big, so impossible, so surreal that my brain took a full 2 seconds to understand what it meant. 16,842-17. I blinked, and blinked again. The numbers stayed. I scanned the line for an extra digit, a missing decimal, a comma in the wrong place, anything that would make this make sense. But no, it was real. My legs nearly gave out, my breath stuttered, my fingertips tingled like they didn't belong to me. David leaned in a little, keeping his voice low. "Do you understand what happened with your investment this morning?" I could barely speak. It went up, but I thought it was a glitch." "It wasn't," he said. "The company you invested in was just acquired at a premium. That means your shares were bought out at the acquisition price. The increase in your balance reflects the payout." Payout. That word echoed inside me like it didn't fit in my world. Payout was something rich people said, people who bought houses and stocks and buildings, people who walked on marble floors. Suddenly, behind us, a familiar voice cut through the quiet. "What's going on over here?" Every muscle in my body froze. Trump had stepped closer, not invading, not pushing, just curious. The suited men behind him observed with that guarded alertness that made everyone step back automatically. David turned to him politely. "Mr. Trump, everything is fine. Just assisting this young man with his account." Trump's eyebrows lifted slightly as he glanced at me, then at the screen between us. He didn't laugh this time. In fact, his expression changed almost instantly, from casual curiosity to a sharper, more focused look. He tilted his head, studying the number. "This is your account?" he asked. My voice barely made it out. "Yes, sir." I didn't know why I added "sir." It just came out. For a moment, Trump didn't say anything. He just looked at me differently, not the way he looked when he entered the room, not the way he looked when he overheard me checking my balance. This look was assessing, calculating. Like he'd just been handed a puzzle piece he wasn't expecting. He pointed at the number on the screen. "You did this?" My throat tightened. I invested in a company 1.5 years ago. I didn't know it would..." He cut me off with a small wave of his hand, stepping closer, lowering his voice so only I, the manager, and Amy could hear. "What's your age?" 16. Trump blinked, and then let out a short, surprised breath that wasn't a laugh, more like something between shock and interest. 16, he repeated, "and you turned," he gestured at the screen again, "this into reality." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to stand. I felt like I was sinking and floating at the same time. He nodded slowly, as if deciding something in his own head. "What's your name, kid?" "Eli." Trump offered a small nod. "Eli. You just pulled off something most adults will never accomplish in their lifetime." I swallowed hard. "Sir, I don't even know what to do next." Trump glanced at David. "Give us a moment." David nodded and stepped away with Amy. Suddenly, it was just me, Trump, and the low hum of the bank. He rested a hand lightly on the counter, leaning in just enough so the conversation felt private. "Listen to me carefully," he said, quiet but firm. "You've just moved into a different game, a different world. And if you're not smart about what happens next, you can lose everything just as fast." My chest tightened. "I don't want to lose it." "No one does," he replied, "but they do, all the time, because they make emotional decisions instead of strategic ones." His eyes held mine, steady. "Tell me how you got here." The question hit me like a spotlight. I felt naked in front of him, but also seen in a way I hadn't expected. I told him everything, not in some polished, confident way, more like a dam breaking. Words spilled out. Cleaning offices with my mom, saving every spare dollar, studying investment videos at night, choosing that company because I believed in it, not because it was popular. The sacrifices, the fear, the doubt. Trump listened with surprising stillness. No interruptions, no jokes, no smirks, just attention, focus. When I finished, he exhaled, almost thoughtfully. "You remind me of me at your age," he said. "Except you started earlier." Something inside me cracked open at those words, something warm, something like pride, but the kind that scares you because you don't know if you're allowed to feel it. Trump straightened slightly, shifting from personal to practical. "Here's the truth, Eli," he said. "You built this with discipline, and discipline is the rarest currency in this country." I swallowed. "So what do I do?" His voice lowered to a slow, measured rhythm, one that felt like it carried weight. "You don't act fast. You don't buy stupid things. You don't brag. You don't let anyone pressure you. You learn, you plan, and you diversify." The word hit me, diversify. He tapped the counter lightly. "Right now you have one miracle. That's great. Celebrate internally. But long-term wealth comes from spreading your risk, building more than one pillar. Don't let a single lucky break define you." My fingers tightened against the counter. "And one more thing," Trump said. "Don't ever forget where you came from. That hunger is your greatest advantage. Lose it and you'll fall like everyone else." My heart thudded in my chest, loud and heavy. He looked at me, not with pity, not with amusement, just respect. "You did something extraordinary, kid. Now the question is, can you handle what comes next?" Before I could answer, a voice called from behind him, "Mr. Trump, your meeting is ready." He nodded once, then pointed at me. "We'll talk more. Stay smart." Then he walked away. And I was left standing there, 16 years old, hands shaking, staring at numbers that didn't match the life I'd lived until today. But for the first time, I started to believe they might match the life ahead of me. When Trump walked away, the room didn't go back to normal. People pretended not to stare, but their glances kept flicking toward me. The kid who suddenly wasn't just a kid anymore. The whispers felt like tiny gusts of wind brushing against my back. I didn't catch the words, but I caught the tone. Surprise, curiosity, disbelief. David returned to the counter, clearing his throat gently. "Eli, I'd like to take you to a private office," he said. "Just to make sure you understand everything clearly." His voice was calm, respectful, almost cautious, like someone handling something fragile, which, in a way, I was. He gestured toward one of the glass-walled rooms on the side of the bank floor. My legs felt stiff as I walked, my steps slower than normal, like gravity had doubled around me. Inside the office, everything smelled like leather and printer ink. There was a wide desk, 2 chairs, and a computer with monitors bigger than my TV at home. David waited for me to sit, then closed the door gently behind us. He sat across from me, folding his hands together. "I know this is overwhelming," he began softly, "but I want you to breathe." I nodded. It didn't help. My heart was still racing. "You've had a major overnight gain," he continued. "When acquisition deals happen, early investors with shares are usually bought out at the acquisition price. In your case, the price multiplied significantly." "Yeah," I whispered. "I saw it on my phone. I thought it was a glitch." "It wasn't," he said. "And because of your age, we need to talk about how this will be handled. Legally." My stomach dropped. "Legally? Did I do something wrong?" No, he said quickly, leaning forward. "Nothing wrong, but you're a minor. Which means technically some financial actions will require a guardian's involvement or specific account adjustments. It's all manageable, I promise." I exhaled shakily, relief washing through me. He pulled up the activity log and showed me a graph of the acquisition spike. Seeing it on a bank computer, not just my old phone, made it feel painfully real. "This is life-changing money," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "And you'll need to protect it. You'll need proper financial education, legal guidance, and a plan." I nodded again, but my mind was barely absorbing anything. The number kept flashing in my brain like neon lights. 2316, 842, done 17. He gave me a printed summary of the balance and the acquisition documentation. I held the papers like they were warm, like they might disappear if I loosened my grip. "You can call your mother from here if you'd like," David said. My throat tightened. "Not yet." He nodded, understanding more than I expected. "You're welcome to sit here as long as you need," he said before stepping out. When the door clicked shut, silence swallowed me. I leaned back in the chair. My hands were trembling. I closed my eyes and took a long breath, but the air barely helped. For 2 years, I had lived inside this private war nobody knew about. Not my mom, not my friends, not my teachers. Just me and a stubborn dream taped together with cheap headphones and long nights. And now the war was won? No, it wasn't. Trump's words echoed in my mind. Don't let this number own you. Long-term wealth comes from building pillars. My question is, can you handle what comes next? Could I? I didn't know. I left the office after a few minutes because staying still started to feel impossible. When I walked back out to the main floor, a few people glanced at me again. Quick, curious looks. Trump was no longer there. His absence felt strange, like I'd just stepped out of a dream, but the instructions he left behind still pulsed inside my head like a metronome. When I walked toward the exit, the security guard raised his chin in acknowledgement. "You good, man?" he asked. I hesitated. "I think so." He smirked. "You looked like you just saw a ghost." I almost laughed. Something like that. He rested one hand on his belt, lowering his voice. "Whatever that manager showed you, don't let this place scare you. You walk like you belong here, and eventually, everybody believes it." His words hit harder than he probably intended. I nodded. "Thanks." Stepping out of the bank felt like stepping into new weather. Outside, Manhattan roared with its usual chaos, the honking, the engine hums, the thud of shoes on concrete, but everything felt muted, distant, like the world was a blurry background and I was too close to the camera. I stopped just beyond the rotating door and pressed my back against the cold marble wall. I pulled my phone out again, tapped the app, and stared. The number hadn't changed. It was still there. Real. My breath quickened again. I scrolled through the transaction history. I saw the first deposit I had ever made, $12.67, my first shift tips from delivering tacos in the rain, then $8, then $20, then $31, bit by bit, week by week, a slow-motion climb that nobody ever saw, and now this, a spike so massive it felt like someone had drawn it with the wrong tool. I swallowed hard and started walking, not sure where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stand still. My feet moved on their own, carrying me down Fifth Avenue, past storefronts with mannequins dressed in clothes that cost more than a month's rent. I passed a Rolex store. The display gleamed behind security glass. I stopped for a moment, staring at a gold watch with diamonds around the face. For the first time in my life, I realized something. I could buy that, right now. Cash. The thought came instantly. And right after it came a second thought, much colder, much louder. "You don't buy stupid things," Trump's voice in my head. And then a third thought, my mom's voice this time. "Be careful. Money changes people." I walked away from the window. As I turned the corner, a group of teenagers about my age laughed loudly as they passed. One of them wore brand new Jordans, bright blue and spotless. I used to stare at those shoes online like they were trophies from a world I couldn't enter. Now I could buy 10 pairs, but I didn't feel happy. I felt suspended, like I'd climbed some invisible ladder and suddenly realized how far there was to fall. By the time I reached Bryant Park, the winter air had settled deeper into the city. I sat on a bench and dropped my backpack beside me. My breath curled into white clouds in front of me. Then I did something stupid. I opened my phone camera and turned it around, not to take a picture of myself, but just to look at myself. The hoodie, the tired eyes, the $5 haircut I gave myself last week because I didn't want to spend the money going to a barber. The kid nobody took seriously. I stared at the reflection. "You're a millionaire," I whispered. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel right. A pigeon fluttered onto the edge of the bench beside me, cocking its head sideways like it was judging my emotional meltdown. I let out a weak laugh. "You got problems too?" I asked the bird. It cooed, unimpressed. I rubbed my face with both hands. My head felt heavy, like thoughts were stacking faster than I could sort them. I needed to call my mom. But how do you say something like this? "Hey, Mom, remember how we couldn't pay rent last month?" Well, surprise, we're millionaires now, no. I couldn't just drop it on her like that. She would think it was a scam, or that I was lying, or that I did something illegal. I stood up again because sitting still felt impossible. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Eli, this is David from the bank. When you have a moment, please call me back. I'd like to discuss next steps with you." The words "next steps" sent a jolt through my body. I wasn't done. I wasn't even close. But before I could think about any plan, my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from my brokerage app. The message made my heart plummet. "Price correction notice." Correction? The worst-case scenario exploded in my chest. Had there been an error? Had the deal fallen through? Was the spike fake? Was I about to lose everything I hadn't even processed yet? My fingers scrambled as I tapped the notification so fast I nearly dropped the phone. The chart opened again. The balance updated. The number froze. Not down, up. 2,491,227.93. The spike had grown. I staggered backward, gripping the edge of the bench. My breath hitched like someone had punched me. This was too much, too fast. I needed someone. And there was only one person I could talk to next. My mom. My thumb hovered over her name. Before I could call, the phone rang. An unknown number again. I answered automatically. "Hello?" A familiar voice spoke, steady and unmistakable. "Eli, it's Donald Trump. I nearly dropped the phone." "I asked the manager for your number," he continued. "Listen, don't panic. We need to talk about that notice you just got." My heart pounded in my throat. "How did you know?" "I've been monitoring the acquisition announcement since I left the bank," he said. "These things move fast. I have some advice for you. Where are you right now?" I swallowed. "Bryant Park." "I'm nearby," he said. "Stay there. I'll send someone to meet you." My breath stopped. Trump didn't laugh this time, and neither did I. The call ended before I could even process what had happened. I stared at my phone, my breath fogging the cold air, my pulse thundering in my ears. Donald Trump was sending someone to meet me. I sat back down on the bench because my legs suddenly felt weak. My mind ran in circles. Fear, confusion, excitement, panic, all crashing into each other like cars skidding on ice. A part of me wondered if this was some huge mistake, some dream I hadn't woken up from. But the cold wind, the noise of the city, the smell of roasted nuts from a food cart, everything was too real. A black SUV rolled to the curb near the park. I didn't think anything of it at first. Cars like that are everywhere in Manhattan. But then the back door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out, scanning the area like he was trained to. Our eyes met. He nodded once. "Eli?" he called out. I froze. My voice barely squeaked. "Yeah?" He didn't smile. "Come with me." Every instinct in my body screamed danger, but then he added, "Mr. Trump sent me." That didn't calm me as much as it probably should have, but I stood anyway. Something in his tone wasn't threatening. It was official, firm, like everything that had happened up until now was just the prelude to something bigger. He opened the back door. "You'll want to hear what he has to say." I hesitated for half a second, then climbed inside. The interior smelled like leather and polished wood. The city sounds dulled when the door closed. The man sat in the front, next to the driver. We drove only a few blocks, weaving through midtown traffic until the SUV pulled up beside a discreet side entrance of a tall building. The driver stepped out first, opening my door. "Upstairs," the man said. My heart pounded as I followed him into a private elevator with mirrored walls. My reflection stared back at me, hoodie, messy hair, backpack slung over one shoulder. I looked like the delivery kid I was. But inside, everything had changed. When the elevator opened, we stepped into a quiet, private lounge overlooking the city. Trump stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out toward the skyline like he was surveying an empire he'd spent a lifetime building. He turned when he heard me. "You made good time," he said. The man in the suit stepped back and waited near the door. Trump motioned for me to come closer. "Sit." I sat on a leather chair that felt too soft, too expensive for someone like me. He remained standing, studying me with that same assessing look he had in the bank. "I didn't want to say too much earlier," he began, "but now that things are moving fast, you need clarity. Immediately." I swallowed. "About the correction?" He nodded. "Price corrections after an acquisition announcement are normal. People panic, algorithms react, the market shakes. But your gain is real. The numbers may wiggle, but the core value is stable. The important question is what you do next." My chest tightened. "I don't know what to do next." "That's why I called you," he said simply. He walked to a table and picked up a glass of water, taking a small sip before continuing. "You're 16, Eli. Most kids your age think $100 is a fortune, and most adults would burn through money like this in months. Cars, trips, shoes, parties. You know what that leads to?" I shook my head. "Back to zero," he said. "Every time." My fingers curled into the fabric of my hoodie. "I don't want that." "Good," he said, "because keeping money is harder than making it." He set the glass down and stepped toward me, speaking slower, more deliberately. "Here's what you're going to do, or at least here's what you should do if you want this to last." I leaned forward, absorbing every word. "First, freeze." He raised one finger. "Don't make any big moves for the next 48 hours. No selling everything. No reinvesting everything. No panicking if the number dips. Let the dust settle." "Wealth hates impulsiveness." I nodded quickly, memorizing each syllable. "Second, learn." His eyes narrowed with emphasis. "You're stepping into a world where one wrong choice can cost you 7 figures. Get a financial advisor who works for you, not for a bank. Someone who explains things, not someone who pushes products." The weight of his words settled into my chest. He continued. "Third, build pillars. Right now, all your success came from one pillar, the investment that took off. But real wealth stands on multiple pillars. Diversify, stocks, index funds, maybe real estate one day. Think long-term, not lottery." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "And fourth?" He smiled faintly. Not a big smile, just a knowing one. "Fourth, respect the money." He tapped the table. "Not fear, not worship, respect, because money responds to discipline. If you stay disciplined, you'll multiply it. If you lose discipline, it'll evaporate." The room fell quiet for a moment. I stared at my hands. I've never had anything, ever. I don't even know how to feel right now. He softened just a little. You feel exactly how every self-made person feels the first time the world recognizes their effort. Shock, fear, responsibility, and then... He paused. Then comes gratitude, not excitement. Gratitude. It keeps you grounded. My chest tightened with a strange ache. I want to help my mom. His gaze sharpened. And you will, but not by doing something reckless. Not by giving it all away out of guilt. You lift others by lifting yourself first. It felt like he could see straight through me. Does she know yet? He asked. No, I whispered. I haven't called her. Good. Call her when you're calm. Tell her everything. She's earned that moment. A knot formed in my throat. He stepped back, hands in his pockets, and studied me again. You have something rare, Eli. Discipline, patience, vision before resources. Most people don't have that. Don't lose it now. For the first time I felt it, something deep, something warm swelling under my ribs. Pride, not loud pride, not showy pride, quiet pride, earned pride. He turned toward the window again. The driver will take you wherever you want to go. But before you leave, he looked over his shoulder, I want you to promise me something. I straightened. What? Stay smart, he said. And remember, money is a tool, not your identity. He extended a hand. It felt surreal to shake it. Now go, he said. I nodded and walked toward the elevator. The man in the suit followed me out, and soon I was back in the SUV. But the world outside didn't look the same. It was still Manhattan, still crowded, still loud. But I wasn't the same kid who had walked into Trump Tower that morning. When the SUV dropped me off near Bryant Park, I stepped onto the sidewalk and pulled out my phone with trembling hands. My fingers hovered over my mum's contact. For a long moment, I just stared. Then I finally tapped the call button. She answered on the third ring, her voice tired. Eli, you okay? For a second, no sound came out of me. Then everything broke. Mom, I whispered, my voice cracking. I need to tell you something. What happened? She asked, worry sharpening her tone. I sank onto a bench again, my back curling forward, tears stinging my eyes. Mum, we're okay, I choked out. We're going to be okay. I promise. She didn't understand yet. How could she? But she heard something in my voice, something she had never heard before. Relief. Slowly, gently, she asked. Eli, what did you do? I laughed softly through tears. I invested, Mom. I invested, and it worked. It really worked. There was silence on the other end, then breathing, then a shaky sound, half sob, half laugh. Oh, my God. I wiped my eyes. Mum, we're okay now. We're finally okay. I told her everything. Not about Trump, that felt too big for now, but about the balance, the acquisition, the future. Her tears became steady, quiet, raw. She didn't understand the financial jargon, but she understood one thing. Her son had changed their lives. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, staring at the people walking by, businessmen, tourists, delivery workers, kids in uniforms, women carrying shopping bags. New York felt bigger than ever. But for the first time, it didn't scare me. I breathed in slowly. The cold air stung my lungs, but it felt clean, real. The truth settled deep inside me, a truth I hadn't been ready to feel until now. The real balance wasn't just the number in my account. The real balance was the one inside me, the discipline, the patience, the hunger, the focus, the resilience. The years of tiny decisions nobody saw, the quiet belief that no circumstance, not poverty, not exhaustion, not struggle, could limit the person I could become. And that balance, I'd built it long before the money ever showed up. I stood, tightening my backpack straps, and walked toward the subway station, my steps steady and full. And before I disappeared down the stairs, I whispered into the cold wind, "If you're watching this, tell me in the comments what you'd do if one day you checked your balance and your whole life changed." I smiled. Hit like, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Then I took the first step into the future.